Greetings, this is Sam Collins from HJ Ross, the coding and billing expert for chiropractic, ChiroSecure, and for you. As always, we try to keep you updated to make sure your practice continues to be successful. And part of that success comes from running the business end of your practice. And one of the things I like to focus on, particularly at the beginning of the year, is do you have a good understanding of your fee schedule, of why you have fees where they're at? What do they mean? How do insurance companies set their fees? Now, we got to be careful. Obviously, some of the managed care plans you're part of, whether you raise a rate or not, doesn't change anything because I'm sure many of you are aware a lot of the managed care contracts, ASH and similar, probably have not raised rates in, I don't know, 20 years. What I'm talking about, though, is your rate. What's fair? What's reasonable? How do we determine that? What do we really understand as what is my usual and customary? One of the things I emphasize to my HJ Ross members is once a year, we need to get together to look at your fee schedule to wonder what has updated, what has changed for the year. Because if you don't raise your fees, no one's doing it for you. Have you ever had an insurance company contact you and say, hey, by the way, we're paying $20 more. You better raise your fees? Absolutely not. Here's my rule. If I bill you 50 and you're an insurance and it's willing to pay 70, but I only bill 50, what are we going to pay you? 50. So if I'm willing to pay you 70, you won't know that until you start to understand the value. So let's go to the slides. Let's talk about relative value units, RVUs. This is what I'm speaking of today. Relative value units are the value of each service compared to another. So every single CPT code that you might use has a relative value based on another code or another service. So by example, if you have one code that is worth 1.0 and another code that's worth 1.5, guess what the difference is? The code that's worth 1.5 has a 50% higher value. So one of the things you've got to start to look at is that, do I really understand this? One of the cardinal problems with chiropractic is chiropractors don't understand that. By example, it's not often or not inoften that I don't run into a chiropractic practice. I'll ask them, what do you charge for a 98940? And they'll say something like 50 or 60. Okay, all right. Then I ask, what do you charge for a 98941? And then they literally give me a fee that's like $10 more. That makes no sense based on the relative value. Realize 98941, your 3 to 4 region manipulation, has about a 35% higher value than does 98940. That's why you'll see that in Medicare rates even. So I want to really start with, though, you all looking at what are your current charges for these 4 codes. And you'll see here I have 2 of the spinal manipulation codes, the 1 to 2 region, 3 to 4. I have your mid-level new patient exam, and I've chosen just exercise, 97110. Now, if you're saying, oh, Sam, I don't do exercise, that's fine. It could be any code. I want to know what your charges are to start to look and make sense of them. Here's what I've learned in teaching seminars for all these years. I find chiropractors probably use somewhere around 8 or 10 codes pretty commonly as far as treatment codes, exam codes, adjustment codes, a couple of therapies, and so on. What I have found, 50%, sometimes even more of those values make no sense, which means you're instantly losing money. So I want you thinking of what we're charging for these, and I'm not here to try to tell you to necessarily raise rates, but just to start to look like, what is it worth? This is a good example. What if you've owned a home for many years, and when you bought the home, you paid $200,000? I will guarantee every home that you bought 15, 20 years ago has doubled, tripled, quadrupled in price. If you paid $200,000, would you just think, hey, look, I'm going to make $100,000. I'll sell it for $300 or $400. Wouldn't you do something to look at the value of homes in your neighborhood to know what they're going for? So let's say a home down the street sold for $1 million. It was the same size as yours, same area. What do you think your house is worth? Well, that's what relative values do. This is not something Sam is making up. This is by order of the federal government, has been doing it since the 80s, so that every service has a relative value. And what they look at are the cost of how it is to provide that service. By example, the chiropractic codes put into place cost of malpractice, cost of education, and all of those factors. So I want you looking at, what do I charge? Now, on this page, what I have here are the 2025 relative value units of all the common codes. You'll see in the upper left, I have the CMT codes, adjustment codes, all the physical medicine codes. I've included here acupuncture, dry needling, because in some states you can do that, telemedicine codes, E&M codes, prolonged service, even some of the x-rays. And what you do with this, though, is start to look at it from a standpoint of how does one relate to the other? So by example, notice 98940 has a value of 0.82 and 98941 has a value of 1.19. And you might think, well, how do I use that? Well, here's a simple way to think of it. What if you charged $82 for 98940? What would be the price of a 98941? 119. Pretty simple math, because that's the difference between the two. Now, obviously, if you're going to break that down into an exact fee, though, we have to do something a little bit differently. So what you want to look at is that, let me look at these codes from that standpoint. Here's a good example. If you look at that, that difference is roughly, well, we're going to say here, what is that? About 36%. I said 35. You can see right in that range. But notice this too. Notice 98940 has a value of 0.82. And I see this commonly. Someone will say, well, what do you charge for a 98940? And they'll say, oh, I charge 50. Then I'll ask, what do you charge for a 98943? And they'll say 30. And my question to them will be, why? Why did you choose a 40 at 50 and the 43 at 30? Well, that's cheaper. No, it isn't. Notice the difference. 98943 has a value of 0.77. That's 5% less. So I won't say it's the same price, but if I'm charging 50 for a 98940, what would be the commensurate price for a 98943? I'm going to argue right around $45. Why? Because that's about that 5% difference. In fact, I'd say $47.50 if you want to be very exact. So what I'd like you to do is to start to think of, when I've chosen the value of a code, in relation, what should other codes cost? By example, you might think, well, Sam, how do you come up with a $50 price for 98940? I will say to you, there's lots of ways of working that, but I'm just going to say, what do you charge now? That's all. I would think most of you, a 98940 price, you have at a fair price. You have it something you say, this is what I bill, it's fair. Then I want to look at everything relative to that. Here's what I commonly find. Most often, chiropractic offices undervalue the 98941. And I will say that undervalue is about $10 to $15 per code. That means if you're doing 100 patient visits a week, more than half of those are going to be 4-1. So realize you're losing $15 per visit just on 98941 alone. Start to do the math there, and you're going to go, well, Sam, that's like $2,000 to $3,000 a month. Exactly, because you have undervalued. Let's take a look, though, across the board. So if I look at 98940 at 0.82, you may wonder, what should I charge for a 99203? Well, here's an easy way to look at that. Notice 98942 0.82, 99203 3.37. Now, this is a little bit of math here, but would we all agree 4 times 8 is 32? If 4 times 8 is 32 and this is 33, wouldn't it be reasonable to think the price of a 98940 would relate to a price for an exam, a new patient 99203, about 4 times that rate? And I can't tell you how many times I've seen people undervalue. You might think, okay, Sam, that sounds good, but is that really true? Well, we're going to take a look at something here at relative values. Let's just say, for example's sake, you charge 60 for a 98940. You have determined that's the fair and reasonable price for it. I'll say, great, good. Then what do we charge for other things? Well, here's the best way to do it. Use some easy, simple math. If I know the price of one code, I can tell you the price of any in relation to that price. So I'm going to take 60 and divide by its RVU, which is 0.82. 60 divided by 0.82 is 73.17. Now, 73.17 actually isn't the price of anything. It's what we call a conversion. I then take 73.17 and I multiply it by any other code's RVU. So you'll notice if I take 73.17 multiplied by 1.19, which is the value of 98941, it gives me 87.07. Now, I'd probably round that up to 88 personally, but needless to say, if my price is 60 for a 98940, what should be the price for a 41? Well, rounding up, actually about 90. Notice about a third difference. What I want you to start to see is that have a reason. I want to be able to defend this. If, as I've gone to court as an expert defending fees, I always use this and I always win, because tell me what an insurance will pay for one code and I'll tell you what they'll pay for any, particularly when you're looking at personal injury and similar. What about a 99203? It's the same coding. 73.17 times 3.37, 246, or roughly notice, oh wait, 4 times 6 240. Notice the math here. But here's one that puzzles me. I've seen people charge things like exercise, massage even, and they value those at a rate that's below what they're worth. By example, a 97110 has an RVU of 0.89. Do you notice that's higher than 98940? So should your price of 97110 for one unit at least be about 7% higher? Yeah, do the math. 7317 times 0.89, 6512. By doing this, you're going to save yourself a lot of headache or make a lot more money because personal injury is the one place that they actually pay you fair fees. Oh, wait, let's think. What states do that? Michigan. What do they take? Double the Medicare rate. Oh, what about Florida? Double the Medicare rate or RVU. So I'm going to give an example here. This is for California, and I'm just showing California only. It could be any state. If you're a network member with me, please contact me. Let's go through this in detail. Let's make sure you understand what to do. But I'm going to take you with the Medicare rates. You notice here for Southern California, LA, Orange County areas, the value of 98940 is 2925. Now, we're just simply going to do the math here. 2925 divided by 0.82, and I apologize, I put one extra digit, is 3567. That's the conversion. So notice what I do is I take 3567 multiplied by 1.19, and notice it gives me 4244. Now let's look at these prices. 98940, 2925. 98941, 4231. Now, I will admit I'm off by about 12 cents, but you can see that's a very small amount because there's a little bit more to the conversion, but you can see how simple this is. So let's do it this way. What if you told me, hey, Sam, I charge $60 for a 98940? Would we all agree that 60, at least for this schedule, is double Medicare rates? Yeah. So if I charge 60 double Medicare rates, what's double the Medicare rate for 98941? If it's at 4230 or 4250, realize again that's going to be about $85. So notice here it's not a $10 difference. I want you to start to go through and realize by doing this, you're going to start creating a fee schedule that makes sense, that's defensible, but it's not also undervaluing. Because notice if I take 3567, multiply by 3.37, this is the value of 99203, it gives me 120.20. Notice the value, 99203, 118. Again, a dollar or two off here. But I want you to start to realize this is how fee schedules are done. By example, in Arizona, the conversion in Arizona for workers' compensation, the conversion value here for Medicare, I'm showing that it's going to be 3.37. For them, it's going to be what? $68.58. So realize these conversions begin to help you understand, how do I make sure I've established a fair fee schedule? There's nothing worse when I see a provider billing something. I have the example, I have one this past week. He was billing neuromuscular education at $35. And they were paying it, of course. And I thought, well, he was billing a 98940 at 65. Okay, fair. They paid that also. Well, 97112 has a value of 1.0. They'd have paid 20% more, would have roughly paid about $80 for that. Do not undervalue what you're doing. Take some time to go through. Now, I'm going to give you a little tool here. Take your phone out. Do this QR code. We're going to do an example just based on your value of 98940. All you're going to have to do is plug in your value of 98940. Then based on RVUs, we're going to send you back an email that's going to say these what these other three codes are going to be. And I think it's going to be obviously for one, an exam and a therapy. What I want you to start to look at is understanding that you need to help create a fair fee schedule. If you undervalue it, no one's going to tell you. And I would say a good starting point, take your Medicare rates. Look at your Medicare rates and do a percentage. By example, many states just do 1.5 of Medicare 2 times, 1.75. I'm going to suggest by doing that, though, however, it allows you to make sure you're not undervaluing. Because I will guarantee if you all look through this, you're going to find like, oh my God, I've undervalued at least half of your codes. Again, I'm going to implore my HJ Ross Network members, get in contact with me. Let's do a one-on-one Zoom. Let's go through this to make sure you're doing it the right way. That's what the network service is here to do. I want everyone, though, to take a moment to look at what I've presented, go through here, and begin to make sense of your fee schedule so that you're not undervaluing and throwing away money. Until next time, my friends, take care.